To understand that technical interviews are different than general job interviews. The goal of the company is to find both a personality fit for the position and a technical fit. Most interviewers will understand that the position you're interviewing for is a junior position. They'll adjust the expectations of the interview as such. You can expect a mix of technical questions and general employment questions during the interview. Perhaps the most important thing to do before the interview is to make sure you understand the requirements of the job. You may want to review the job requirements several times before the interview begins. Something to determine before you go into the interview is if they're looking for a specialist or a generalist. A specialist will be able to work very, very deeply in a single technology. A generalist may have to know several technologies or a full stack of technologies to be successful in the position. In interviews where they're looking for an expert in a specific language, you have to be prepared to answer technical questions about that technology. Some interviews will even require you to solve programming problems on the spot. When I was interviewing for programmers, we used to do this as a common practice, and we eliminated several candidates using this method. So remember, if you're interviewing for a specific position on Java, JavaScript, PHP, MySQL, or Python, they're really going to expect you to be expert in that specific technology. The questions will reflect that level of expertise. Full stack interviews are common as well. These are generalist positions where they require knowledge of a full stack of technology, like HTML, CSS, JavaScript, and on the back end, PHP and MySQL. Generally, these positions are on smaller teams, or are a single developer supporting an entire department or website. These positions require the interviewee to know a little about a lot. You can expect higher level questions about architecture and how the pieces fit together versus very specific questions about the inner workings of JavaScript or PHP, for example. Another type of common interview is for a content area specialist. These require knowledge or experience programming within a specific problem domain, for example, finance, eCommerce, or healthcare. Programming within these areas requires specialized skills, and actually these are rarely junior positions. The questions might focus on the regulatory or operating environment within the content area. For example, in the United States, within healthcare, there's a legal environment within which software must operate. You can expect questions about that legal environment, known as HIPAA. The questions may be technical within the specific content area. They may ask about specific APIs that are used for finance, for example, or travel. With larger companies, it's not uncommon to interview 2 or even 3 times for a position. Something to determine during every interview is who is your interviewer. There are generally 2 types that you're going to encounter. The first is a technical interviewer. The technical interviewer is going to look at the candidates strictly to understand their technical understanding and depth. These are the people who are going to ask you specific language questions about Java or PHP, for example. They're going to look at your individual programming and development skills. A non-technical interviewer may be someone from an HR department or even a project manager. They want to know if you're going to fit into the team, if you're going to meet deadlines. They're going to ask you more traditional interview questions that you might hear at any type of job interview. The questions you'll be asked will fall into several broad categories. The first category is general questions. These are questions just to get to know you. For example, why did you get into software development? Or what's the most interesting thing you've ever coded? Be aware here, the questioner is probably looking for communication skills. They want to make sure you can not only code, but communicate well. They might ask you what development environment you prefer. What blogs or publications do you read to keep up with the changes in development? What would you like to improve about your work? Keep in mind, these questions don't have right or wrong answers. However, not being able to answer these questions well is a red flag to any interviewer. In larger organizations where teamwork is important, you'll probably be asked several team dynamics questions. Questions such as, do you prefer working by yourself or with a team? What do you think of pair programming? What are some advantages of working in pairs? You want your answers to reflect the fact that you're a team player, that you enjoy working with others, and that you communicate well. You might also be asked, tell me about a time you had a disagreement with a teammate or manager. How did you handle it? The key here is to show that you communicated with the team member and resolved the disagreement positively. It's probably not the best answer to say, I've never had a disagreement with a team member, because that's either unrealistic or makes you look too passive. Your interview will also include specific technical questions about the technology or technologies you'll be working with. If you're applying for an HTML or web development position, those questions might include, what does DOCTYPE mean? What's the difference between an element, tag, attribute, and value? What's the current HTML standard? What are some differences between HTML5 and older specifications of the language? You want to be able to confidently and competently answer these questions. If the position you're interviewing for involves working with an object-oriented language like Java or C++, you can expect questions on OOP, like what's the difference between a class and an object? What does it mean if a property is a static member of a class? What's an abstract class? Why is it important to create setters and getters within a class design? To work well with an OOP, you not only have to know the code, but understand the philosophy of object-oriented programming. You can expect questions in that vein. And finally, some general interview tips. These apply to anyone interviewing for any position. First of all, mind your manners. Say please and thank you. Give good eye contact and a firm handshake with the interviewer. Dress well, even if the environment is dressed down. Some development shops are notoriously casual. You can't be at the interview. Dress up in a business professional manner for the interview itself. Don't lie, ever. Lies will too easily be discovered and can be a cause for dismissal later on. Make sure you know what's on your resume. An interviewer is going to ask you about it. Be prepared to discuss the positions at length that you've held previously. Call the interviewer by name. And finally, smile and don't forget to ask for the job. I'm Mark Lassoff with Learn to Program. I'd personally like to wish you best of luck with your own interview process.